Hello and welcome to the show. Tonight we look at an organization that's trying to make sure we eat healthy, get up to date on a major public works project, but our first guest will give us some insight into this year's farming season. All that and more tonight on Around the Region. Midwest Food Resources is committed to providing families with a balanced nutritional diet through both education and resources. They're coming up later in the show. Clean drinking water is an essential part of life, and several communities, hamlets, and towns are teaming up on a major project that will see drinking water find its way to small towns in central eastern Alberta. We'll have more on that later. But first, it's planting season, and many Midwest and Lakeland farmers are hard at work. Our own GREYSON KNUTSON is here with an inside look at the markets they could face come harvest.
All right, my guest today is Bob Nelson, president of Great Western Grain Company. Bob, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us today.
My pleasure.
Bob, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about what you guys do at Great Western Grain?
Our main business is exporting pulses, which are lentils, peas, chickpeas, those type of products. We built our first plant in 1985, and because there weren't many exporters at that time processing lentils and peas, so that's how we got into the business, and it's grown from there to where we have our own splitting plant, and we export those around the world.
A lot has been made recently about the trade missions done by Federal Ag Minister Jerry Ritz and the New West partnership just by the three premiers of BC and Saskatchewan, in particular with Eastern Asia. What do you make of that?
Well, Jerry Ritz is a real friend of agriculture. He's always on top of things, and I've been on trade missions with him myself. I think there are a lot of good initiatives there. In the announcement that they recently had at our facility, there are a lot of promotional ideas to help promote pulses, the consumption of pulses in particular in North America, which is very low at this point, promoting the dietary benefits of pulses, and I think there's a lot of things that Jerry's been doing in the federal government that should help us in the future.
You mentioned the demand for pulses are up, particularly in Eastern Asia, and we're trying to get it here in North America. Does this reflect what producers here have been planting recently? Are you seeing more pulse crops go into the ground?
Yeah, we've seen a huge increase in the last number of years. Like last year, for example, we had over 3 million acres of peas in Western Canada. This year, it's a projection that there'll be over 3 million acres of lentils, which is unheard of for Western Canada. So we may get to the point where we're starting to produce too many, but that all depends on what happens in other markets. If Turkey has problems with their production in the future, or India, all of a sudden our crop is gobbled up quite quickly by those markets. So we've been able to keep up with export with the production that we've had, but at some point we could possibly overproduce.
Now this obviously means that grain numbers are down, like the durum and the barley as well. Have you seen this as well?
I haven't noticed that to a large degree. I mean, even though lentil and pea acres are up dramatically, and you're talking 3 million acres of each, as compared with canola, barley, wheat, oats, it's not a huge number in comparison with those major crops.
We'll have more with Bob Nelson from Great Western Grain when we return right here on Around the Region. Now back to GREYSON KNUTSON and more of his conversation with Bob Nelson from Great Western Grain.
Let's talk a little bit about this year now. Seeding is obviously a little bit behind because of all the rain. But what are moisture levels like out there? Have they been pretty positive?
In our particular area, moisture conditions are very good now for planting. There are some areas in other parts of Saskatchewan where they are still dry, and they are a bit concerned about the late conditions. There are other areas too that are wet, and they haven't been able to get into the field to even plant yet. So we've got quite a range of planting dates going to occur in Saskatchewan this year, and of course that could be a factor once we get into fall and freezing temperatures and so on.
How concerned are producers about the late planting season? What normally would be their target dates, I guess, to get out into the field?
Well, normally for pulses, especially lentils, producers like to be in the field in late April, early May, especially in southern Saskatchewan. They're used to planting by mid-April, and in some of those areas they've been delayed even up till today almost. I know in the far south have finally started planting, so they're a little concerned about that, but then they have a long growing season, and they can usually come through okay. But in this part of the country, if we see a little too late, that can really hurt us in the fall. So the traders, I think, are maybe a little bit concerned about the late seeding, and sometimes that's a factor in their marketing decisions, and could possibly take positions in the market based on their concerns. But I don't, from my own personal point of view, I don't think there's any problem that we can foresee yet.
What are local producers saying about the upcoming crop year? Are they planting the same things as they have been the last few years?
By and large, they're planting the same thing as normal. They're a bit unhappy with the prices of commodities. Wheat is down. Canola, not so much. Canola prices are still reasonably strong in that $8 mark. But peas, of course, have dropped from $7 range last fall to $4.50, $4.75 range, which has taken a lot of the optimism out of producers' minds. But they have to plant a crop, and they have to try and stick with a certain rotation. I think by and large that's what they're doing, and hoping things will maybe improve, maybe hoping that India will be back in the market and looking to buy big quantities, which could help improve the market. But in the short term, I don't think we'll probably see much change in prices through till fall.
Well, thanks so much for coming in today, Bob. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
After the break, we have a look at Aboriginal Awareness Week and some of the events that took place. That's next on Around the Region.